Welcome back to ReadingBear. Today, we will take a look at some new IDOWorkHereLady stories. And if you enjoyed my content, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel and post some bear emojis in the comments. Let's go!
The first one is titled, I Just Want to Clock In. I'm out of work because of virus, so occasionally I drive my husband to and from work, because he has a long commute and at least once in a while I can do the driving for him. Now, he works at a warehouse-type shopping center. Between 9 to 10 a.m. MF, they have senior shopping. His shift started at 9:45. I had some shopping to do, so we walked in together. I went to grab a cart and go to the back of the line of regular shoppers waiting for the senior hour to finish up and be let in. My husband kisses my cheek and walks into the building. Now, we're in our 30s, not close to the 55 plus. The lady at the front of the line starts shrieking that man was just allowed in to shop and didn't wait in line like the rest of us. I stopped mid-cart grab, and watched it unfold. My husband turns around and politely explains, while holding up his name badge, sorry ma'am. I work here, I'm just showing up for my shift, is all. I'm not cutting the line, I promise. She loses it. She demands to speak to a manager since people are being allowed to cut in line in front of her, and how she's been waiting for over an hour to get in. The doors didn't even open until 9 a.m. and there are signs everywhere explaining that 9 to 10 is senior hour and it has been this way for months. My husband continues to try calm the lady down, explaining that he's an employee, his shift starts in 3 minutes, he's not cutting in line, he's clocking in for his shift. The person watching the door keeps explaining the same. Finally, a manager comes to the front. Karen is now blue in the face from yelling and screaming. It's time for my husband to clock in, and he can't get past the front door because Karen keeps screaming. The manager explains that my husband is, indeed, there to work and get everything ready for the incoming flood of patrons. Karen was having none of it. My husband finally decides that in order to just end the situation, he'd use the back entrance, at the complete opposite side of the giant building. Manager and husband share a very knowing look. Manager apologizes to Karen, who now looks incredibly righteous. Manager says he'll have a talk to the employee at the front door. There's some whispering. My husband's co-worker smiles a little. It's now 10 a.m. and the doors are supposed to be open to everyone. Karen starts looking very impatient as the manager, standing at the door, tells her he can't let the general public in until there are 2 people at the door. We wait, and wait, and wait, and wait. And about 5 minutes after 10, my husband walks up from inside the building, to the door, and calls Karen on into the building, apologizing for being late, as he was being held up. The laughs from the people in line behind her was just precious. She went from blue in the face screaming to red and embarrassed. The next one is titled, She Finds Out That I Am the Director. I am a documentary film director, and I was invited to speak at an event in my hometown that coincided with the DVD release of the film I directed. They were selling the DVDs at the event and it was the first time I saw them, so I got really excited. I walked up to the stand, smiled and held one of the boxes and showed it to my girlfriend and my friend. The lady behind the stand was less than enthusiastic about this, so she told me to put it back unless I was going to buy it. Here I was thinking to tell her that I am the director, but I really don't like doing that as it is so pretentious. I apologized to her and I told her that I will put it back in a sec, I just wanted to show this to my other friends. She got very angry and told me to put it back at once unless I was going to buy it. I put it back and apologized to her. Soon after they called me to stage where I talked in front of 500 people. After the speech I was talking to the organizers and this lady came up to me and said that she was so sorry and why didn't I tell her who I was. I could have told her right at the stand, but I guess I wanted to see how it all plays out. I hope she learned from this and she is nicer to people, but I doubt it. The next one is titled, I'm Just Delivering Your Christmas Tree. Okay, with Christmas coming I would share a story about my dad's adventure at a house of female entertainment. My dad has always been a bit of a free spirit and was always looking for something interesting to do. One thing that captured his heart was Christmas trees. In particular, taking Christmas trees to Florida and selling them. So for several years, come October he would arrange for a couple of trailers of good Nova Scotian trees to be shipped to Florida, and just before the American Thanksgiving, he would drive down and take up residence for 6 weeks selling his trees. He quickly became known as the crazy Canadian who sold trees in flip-flops and t-shirts while the locals were bundled in their winter coats, hats and mittens going on about how cold it was. Since he had absolutely gorgeous trees and didn't expect people to pay with their firstborn child, his lot became so popular he had to add a third load of trees halfway through his season. So, one fine day, Dad is standing in his lot talking trees and a very beautiful, very well-dressed lady came up to him asking about buying a tree. What was the tallest tree in his lot and how much was it? Dad showed her his best tree, over 20 feet, and told her the price $75. The lady smiled and asked him if she paid him $100 extra would he please bring it to her address that afternoon and set it up for her? No problem. Later that afternoon, Dad left his helper in charge of the lot and drove the tree over to a very genteel neighborhood. Dad pulled up in his pickup, knocked on the door and was invited in by a very pretty girl who left to get the lady. Lady came, showed Dad where the tree was supposed to go and left him to his devices. So, keep in mind, Dad is a small down guy. A country boy. Houses of entertainment just weren't in his lexicon. He brought the tree in and went about setting it up, and a pretty girl walked by and smiled at him. Dad smiled back. Went out to get something from his truck. Came back, another girl walked by and smiled at him. After the fifth or sixth girl, Dad started noticing that their clothing was very minimal. Very minimal. Dad started to blush but kept his eyes firmly on the tree. Eventually he got it set up nice and straight, anchored to the wall and was packing up to go when the lady came back into the room. After admiring the tree and Dad's handiwork, she paid him and then offered him the services of one of her girls. Dad gulped, chuckled nervously and stammered, "I am just here for the tree, ma'am," and bolted for the safety of his truck. Funny thing, after that, the lady came back every year for a tree and Dad set it up for her. She never offered services again though. The next one is titled, "I was the boss's son, had an entitled employee on my crew make a mistake." Super long, so apologies. A little background. My father owns a telecommunications repair company and before that he worked in the industry for years, and since I hated daycare I spent every summer helping him and learning to weld, rig cellphone tower antennas, crap like that. By the time I was 19 and dropped out of college, I decided to go get my certifications and ask my dad for a job. Well, he got a huge contract and hired 5 brand new guys with me and another veteran that's been working for him for years as crew leads to run all the repair projects. I end up with this massive D-bag who got fired from multiple different physical therapy clinics and is now 40 and unhearable by any other industry, but he has a massive superiority complex cause he has a bachelor's and that somehow makes him better than tradesmen. On to the story. Me, CL, the other crew lead, DB, douchebag. We are on the first site on the first day of a job for a major client taking down old antennas and putting up new ones. CL and I drive up to the site after morning meetings at the hotel with my dad and the client over Skype, and we've brought lunch for everyone. CL realizes that he forgot his hard hat at the hotel and tells me he'll be back in half an hour. No big deal, it's a simple job that I've done before with my dad. I drop the sandwiches in the refrigerated server room and go over to DB, who using a trailer hitch winch to haul a brand new antenna up the tower to our other guys who are 700 feet up at the top waiting to install it. He's got the antenna about 150 feet up at this point. Me, "Hey DB, I think you've got your fasteners on backwards. The fasteners have to be perfect cause the higher the antenna gets, the more wind, the more tension on the winch. DB, they're fine. Me, no, they're definitely backwards. DB, they're ducking fine. Go the duck away, bootlicker." Guess that was his derogatory for me being the boss's kid. Me, no, they're backwards and by the time it gets up there the winch is gonna slip and that antenna is gonna drop. Bring it back down and fix it. DB, I don't have to do crap for someone who's half my age and couldn't make it through a year of college. Only reason you're here is your daddy's kid and can't make it in the real world. Right as he finishes the sentence I hear the winch crack, so I grab DB and run both of us into the server shelter, smashing all the sandwiches in the process, while the winch flies out of the hitch mount and the antenna drops like a rock onto the truck, carving straight through the cab and into the ground underneath. Me, duck, so you can't rig right and don't have the common sense to put the pin in to secure the winch to the truck? DB, there's no way that was my fault. Me, not only is it your fault, but now I get to explain to both OSHA and our insurance how we managed to damage over $70K in equipment and $30K in our client's equipment in the first day on this job. I spent the rest of the day calling OSHA, my dad, our insurance, and my mother, our accountant, to make sure that all the right reports get filed and our asses are covered on all bases. I'm assuring the other crew guys their paychecks aren't going to be affected and that I'll get them more sandwiches. After the end of day reports are finished, my dad calls me up and tells me to fire DB for negligence. So, I go up to him. Me, hey. You're being let go. Sorry, but this incident is just something we can't afford to happen again, and since it was obviously DB, you can't fire me. CL, pretty sure he can fire you. And if you don't believe him, I'll fire you. If you don't believe either of us, we can go see the boss tomorrow. DB, duck it, let's go talk to the boss. Right now. It's like 4 p.m, we drive 3 hours, interrupt my family's dinner, and then sit there smugly on the couch in my dad's home office while he literally screams at this guy about costing him $100K and maybe a lost contract, and basically tells the guy he's filing a civil suit for negligence since I specifically came and told him he was doing something incorrectly. DB, what the duck does he know? He's just a kid. Dad, I taught him how to rig a winch when he was 8 and he did it right. You're a 40-year-old man who managed to crush an entire truck. Get the duck out of my house. The next one is titled, Just Cause I'm Young Doesn't Mean I Can't Be the Boss. Worked at a very popular nightclub. Multi-level, younger crowd downstairs, big spenders upstairs. We're talking $70,000 a night on our biggest nights and averaging around $30K on normal nights. We used to get tons of applications as the staff made great tips. I started at the bar as bouncer for a summer job when I was 19 and ended up liking it and being good at it. Anyway, fast forward a couple years and I'm 22 and have been made GM of the bar with a staff of about 50. We opened during the week for deck drinkers and I would usually be dressed to impress on some of the days as I wasn't in the office all the time, or I would be doing work around the bar, minor fixes, painting and such. Anyway. I came down and let the staff in so they could get to work, and before we open a girl knocks on the door. You know the type, looking down her nose at everyone with a holier than thou attitude. I open the door for her and ask how I can help her. She takes one look at me in my boots, work jeans and t-shirt and walks right past me without so much as a how do you do, to tell the bartender she's looking for the manager so she can pass in a resume. I had the distinct pleasure of watching her face go red as I tell her I'm the manager and tossing her resume immediately without looking at it. A lot of the customers we have that spend the big money look like nobodies. The next one is titled, Lady Claims to be Owner's Daughter. So, a little backstory on where I work. It's a very small family business where we sell pools and pool chemicals. Only 2 desks in our office which can fully see into the showroom. 1 desk for the manager and 1 for me. Also, when I say small business, I mean it. Normally, it was always just me, assistant manager, and my mum. I had been in this business since I was born, therefore knew a lot for my age. However, we had just recently hired someone new that was a little older than me. I was 21 at the time and my new coworker was 28. Now onto the story. The cast will be Matt equals coworker, me equals me, Karen equals idiot customer, KK equals Karen's kid. The manager, my mum, had to go and pick up some office supplies for us and mail off some bills, so it was just me and my coworker. We weren't very busy at the time since it was a weekday and fairly close to closing time, so I was sitting at my desk and he was at the manager's desk, since he didn't have his own, on our phones waiting to hear the door open. We hear the door open and my coworker, we will just call Matt from here out, starts to get up and I tell Matt that I've got this one, so he sits back down. I stand up and see this lady, Karen, and her kid come in and start walking around. I walk out into the showroom and welcome them to the store and ask if they need help finding anything. Karen, we are just looking right now. I will let you know if we have any questions. KK, I want a pool toy. Where's the toys at? Me, well, the pool toys are right over in the aisle by the door and on that wall there. I motioned to the wall where all the displays were. Karen, I told you that we didn't need any help right now. I just stepped back and walked into the office, not wanting any confrontations this close to closing. They continued looking around for another few minutes when I heard the kid hollering from the front of the store. I looked up and the kid was climbing on our ladder samples, which clearly have neon green signs that are 8 inches by 11 inches that say, "Do not climb on." So, I walked up to the front of the store and politely told the kid that he couldn't climb on them. Karen, you can't tell my son what to do. KK, I just want to climb on them. He then starts to cry. Asterisk, this kid was about 10 years old. Me, I'm sorry, but it is against company policy to have anyone climbing on them for safety purposes. Karen, well then maybe you should have a sign on them that says you can't. I point at the sign that says you can't. Karen, well you should have made the sign bigger. I'm not the best at containing my frustration, and when I get frustrated at someone my sarcasm comes out with absolutely zero filter. This kid had been running around our store screaming like a banshee and I was getting very annoyed. Me under my breath, well maybe try using your eyes next time. Karen, what did you say to me? Me, I said to look for a sign next time you want to let your son climb all over displays in a store. And I walked away. She continues walking around with the kids still crying until she gets to the one corner where we have some Legos for kids to play with while their parents wait to have their water tested or be helped. Mind you, the test lab was closed, and the area roped off with all the lights shut off to that corner. KK screaming, I want to play with those Legos. Karen, alright just go ahead. I wasn't even in the mood to say no, as long as it stopped him from crying. Then he starts carrying them out from the designated area and throwing them down the aisles at our toy displays. I had enough of these little craps because I knew I was gonna have to clean it up. I've been told that I'm pretty scary when I'm angry too. Me to KK, you are not allowed to take the Legos from the play area. Please put them back where you got them from. Karen, who do you think you are talking to my son that way? Me, I am simply telling you both that what he has been doing is not allowed in our store and he needs to stop. Karen, well how dare you talk to us that way? I'll have you know that I'm the owner's daughter and I will have you fired for this. Mind you, the owners are my grandparents. And she sure as hell isn't my aunt. She walks up to the counter that looks into the office before I could say anything. Karen to Matt, have you heard how your employee talks to me? He is the rudest employee I have ever seen in here, and as the owner's daughter I demand that you fire him. Matt, well I can't do that. Karen, why not? He is a rude butthole. Matt, I can't fire him, because he's my boss. Karen, what? No, he isn't. You are lying to me. She's droning on and on now. We have an employee picture on the wall celebrating our business's 50th anniversary with everyone labeled in the picture including the owners and all their kids. Karen finally shuts up and looks at me while I'm grabbing the picture frame off the wall. I slide it in front of her and point to my label. My name, assistant manager with grandson underneath my name and title. Her face turned every shade of red under the sun. Me, so you mean to tell me that you're a long-lost aunt of mine, because if not, you can get the hell out of this store. She practically dragged her kid out of the store while trying to run out the doors. She kept pushing on our doors trying to get out, they're pull doors. Me shouted to her, maybe try to pull the doors ya dumbass. The next one is titled, I'm not a student, I'm actually a teach, nope, off to detention with you. Shout out to the people who were accused of being a student when they had already graduated. I've recently started out as a teacher. I was 27 when I had my first teaching job, did some other stuff before, and of course, as the newbie, not everyone working at that school knew me at the time. I look a bit younger than my age and I usually wear a pair of jeans and a nice blouse, shirt. I was working there for a bit over a month when I was walking through the hallways of the school during class hours, picking up some paperwork and heading to the teacher's room as I had a free period. An older man, I guess in his 40s, stopped me, looking kinda angry. Unknown man, excuse me young lady, where do you think you're going? Why aren't you in class? Me, I'm not actually a student, but I'm an unknown man, like hell you are, I've seen you walking around with the older kids, go to your class immediately. Me, sir, I'm really not a student, but I'm actually a teacher. I'm new here so you probably haven't seen me, but unknown man, stop your lying, go report to the office immediately. I will make sure your parents hear of this. And don't think I won't be looking for you in detention tomorrow. Me goes to the office as I needed to go there anyway to ask something, and because this guy was way taller than me and looking really angry, my colleagues in the office, what happened to you? Me, I got sent here because I was outside during class hours. Also, could you call my parents because a man expects me in detention tomorrow? My colleagues basically died of laughter right there, and because there's usually more than one teacher keeping an eye out during detention, and thus I couldn't tell them who of the two males that were actually scheduled for detention the next day had given me detention. They actually sent me to detention the next day. You'll see in a bit why. I took some grading work with me. The unknown man who sent me to detention was looking smug as sh*t when he saw me sitting in detention. After a few minutes, one of my colleagues from the office came in and, in the most theatrical voice you can imagine, introduced me as their new colleague, and wasn't I a dear for coming into detention while busy grading papers in order to help them out with unruly students just roaming the hallways during class hours. You should have seen the guy's face, priceless. For some reason he never sat at my table during lunch. The next one is titled, I'm your server and the manager. Checkmate, Karen. I'm not sure if this is inappropriate for this group, as it was clear that I worked there but not in the capacity that the customer thought. But I'll push through. I'm in mobile, so all the obligatory, sorry I'm on mobile. A few years ago, I started serving at a family-owned restaurant in my town. I quickly became close with the owner and the owner's daughter and helped them with more than just serving. I became head server and then bar manager. Since it was a smaller restaurant, I kept serving because I made way more money that way. We had a special every day for wine. We had a shelf filled with wine bottles. Each shelf was either 15%, 25%, or 50% off. It was a great deal and typically we sold it for about $5 to $10 more than we were paying per bottle of wine. I don't know if this is well known, but a lot of restaurants upcharge their alcohol quite a bit in order to make a profit, obviously lol. So, it was a great deal for people. One day a lady comes in with her friends and immediately starts causing problems. I end up taking over for the server who got them right after they ordered their drinks because they were so rude to her and it was her first full day of serving by herself. The lady ends up ordering one of the 25% off bottles, which ended up being around $7 more than you could buy it in a liquor store. How do I know this? At the end of the meal, I can hear her talking to her friends about how she's going to get the bottle of wine for free. She knew I was right there and could probably hear her, but I was just a server and probably dumb, also overheard at an earlier time. I may be dumb but I'm not stupid. At this point I'm so ready to tell her no, I actually wander by a few times so she can try her crap. Sure enough, she snaps at me, and I mean literally snaps her fingers, and calls over and said, I want you to get your bar manager. I looked online and found this bottle of Merlot for $XXX and you charged me $XX plus 7. I'm not paying this ridiculous overcharge and I also want to talk to them about the service here today too. Now, not to toot my own horn, I was a good server. There weren't many people in the restaurant at the time so I know I didn't neglect them. I substituted food for them and didn't charge them any upcharges, even though a double-baked stuffed potato costs more than a side of chips, but whatever. She looked at me with such a smug face until I smiled back at her and said, actually, I am the bar manager. I've never seen such a comical change in expression outside of a sitcom. She said, you're the bar manager? And I smiled and nodded and said, every restaurant will charge you more for products than they buy them for. This is how we make a profit. I'm not going to be discounting the wine. As far as issues with service, I would be happy to listen to your complaints and take them into consideration for the future. She spluttered, grumbled, and told me, well, I'll never be coming back here. Okay, good riddance, lady. And she didn't come back. Her friends did though and became some of my favorite regulars. They told me a few months later that the only reason they went out with her was because she was one of their sisters-in-law and didn't have any friends. I wonder why? The next one is titled, I'm in the IT department. I'm a female and I work in IT. Multiple times now, I've been on the phone with a vendor's help desk and was told, you need to have someone from your IT department call us. Me, I am in the IT department. Tech, oh good. Can you hand the phone over to one of the techs there? Me, no. I don't think you're understanding. I'm a member of the IT department here at hospital. That's why I'm calling you. Tech, I understand, ma'am. But I can't talk to a secretary about this. I need to talk to someone who understands about technology and network setup. Me, I have a bachelor's degree in network operations and 5 IT certifications, including a CCNA. I think that qualifies me as knowing technology and our network setup, wouldn't you? Tech, silence. The next one is titled, I know, I installed it. IT guy here, worked in the field for almost 25 years and now I'm considered a global expert in my specialty. I'm one of the people who made sure that anything on the internet was permanent and had a hand in building a major cloud service. In the early 2000s I was already considered an expert and was asked by my employer to present about a product at a bank who had just purchased it. I was part of a team with 2 other guys, each of us was going to give a technical presentation to the IT department. The first guy had been talking for about 5 minutes when someone entered the room and things started going downhill. He was heckling us. Well, when I was at less than insert major retailer greater than, we had problems with that and blah, blah, blah. The guy had the most annoying, nasal, snide voice, just dripping with, I'm going to blather on about how smart I am by putting you down. God, I wanted to punch him, but even worse I had to do my presentation in front of him. Maybe he'd stop after the first guy was finished. Oh no, he didn't. The next guy got up, talking about a different but related product and its technical features, and he laid into him, well, less than insert major retailer greater than had so much trouble with ISCSI that we had to blah, blah, blah. Oh wonderful. What I didn't notice was how the other people in the room were reacting to him. He was getting the side-eye, ESADMF looks, and blatant glares from all the IT guys there. In retrospect, why the manager there didn't shut him up is still a mystery. So, when my turn came, I decided just to plow through things and endure him. I started talking about my product and sure enough, he had to say something. Well, at less than insert major retailer greater than we had one of these and it gave us a lot of trouble with authenticating into Windows domain servers. This was before Active Directory came out, not relevant to the story but it gives the tech folks of an idea when. I stood there and listened to him, just nodding along, I can feel this one no sweat. I know, I installed it. Dead silence. The OS was about 3.2 or 3.3, I think. I went on, not realizing what had happened. Now we're on version 6 and, if I remember right, it was a Windows authentication issue and worked perfectly after a patch. 2 seconds later it hit me. Oh crap. I just shut down the client. But I continued on with my presentation and he left shortly afterwards, before I finished. All the IT guys came up and apologized, telling me he'd just come over from less than insert major retailer greater than and couldn't stop talking about how they did things and why it was better. One guy said he was an ass, and they couldn't stand him. Outside the bank, everyone was laughing and congratulating me for shutting him down, saying he'd stepped in it and stepped in it good. We were almost at lunch when we met the sales guy, who had been on the phone, and the first thing he asked was, "Who's Joe?" Not my name. Me, I replied, not certain how this was going to go but he shook my hand. That was ducking brilliant. I was so mad at that jerk and when you shut him down, I jumped up and started punching at the phone yelling, yes. 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 Take that butthole. I've told that story over and over since, it never gets old and never has happened again. I honestly don't want it to, I'm a professional that takes great pride in my work and he was the total opposite of one. It speaks volumes of their hiring practices that lets someone like that get through.